Hi everyone, looks like it's 3 o'clock. So, which means it's our bi-weekly, but nearly bi-weekly Tanya OL session. So let me just tune down the music here. Okay, so welcome to those who are watching us today. Welcome to another session of Tanya OL. So for today, I'm actually joined by Shaliza and also Elena, where we talked about assessments. Okay, so of course, as per usual, there's always Nikki at backstage helping me with the technical things. So there's Nikki as well, aside from here, Shaliza and Elena. So for those who are watching us, thank you for joining us for today. As I mentioned, we're talking about assessment. So it's all about assessment today. If you want, if you have any questions about assessment, whether it's technical, whether it's more theory based or anything, feel free to ask us in the chat. Okay, guys. But mainly today I'll be discussing with Shaliza, who actually builds a course for assessment. So so before I ask Shaliza a whole bunch of questions, I wanted to have like I wanted to share with you why I decided to talk about assessments today. So the assessment feature on OpenLearning might not be used so much as not a lot of people plan to use it, as they usually have a different idea or a platform to use for assessment. Usually, whenever you have assessment, you use like Scholarly, H5P or anything, you have a different platform that you go to when you set up assessment. But you might not know this, but the OpenLearning platform feature was built with a constructive alignment in mind, which is great for open-ended assessment, especially for micro-credential courses. So this is what I want to talk about today. How a lot of people are overlooking the assessment feature on OpenLearning, which is actually the greatest part of it, where you can actually utilize constructive alignment, outcome based on in your education to the platform itself. So most people don't use the assessment feature because it needs to be set up, but actually it's pretty easy once you have the plans met up. So and there's actually quite a few ways to do this. But for today, let's look at one of the ways on how you can plan out and your courses, which is from the graphic design course which Shaliza has built. So how she did it is that she has one report built for the whole course. So what I wanted to talk about with Shaliza today is mainly what's her process, what's the plan, and anything that she wanted to share with you. Okay, so Elena is also here because Elena is a pro at assessment as well. So if you have any questions, feel on assessment or anything, please feel free to ask any of us on questions about assessment. Okay. All right. So going back to Shaliza's, asking Shaliza on her experience. So Shaliza has built this graphic design course, which which usually I have used it numerous times in workshops or anything. It was actually built by Shaliza. I'm just taking her name. So the planning and the constructing and everything, it was built by Shaliza. So I want to ask Shaliza, how actually did you plan the assessment for this course? What was your process, and do you already have a plan setting up the assessment before you create your contents?
Mm-hmm. Um, Hi. Okay. So, planning for the assessment. I think before explaining about the planning for the assessment or the process, it's important to I like to touch on these two important things, is which is in the case of the graphic design course, I'm am not only the assessment designer, but I was also the course designer. So in that particular case, I was starting the design from designing the course itself. But please note that you can, in an outcome based assessment, it can be a person designing for the course and a different person designing for the assessment. So that's that. So during the designing of the assessment for the graphic design course, so it started out at the beginning when I was designing the course itself. So I always have these three questions that is related to each other when I'm designing a course. um, so the first question would be like, when I'm thinking about the learning outcome, I will also always be asking myself, what do I want the learners to learn, or what do I want the learners to be able to do? So that's the first question. And then when I'm designing the course, the content and the activities, I'll be asking myself, what kind of content or learning materials or activities that will likely help my learners to achieve this learning outcome. So that is the designing the course. Why I'm touching on these two is because when I'm designing the outcome based assessment, so it would be always me asking myself questions, like, how do I how will I know that my learners have achieved this learning outcome? So it goes back to that learning outcome. As you can see here, like designing the course is all going back to the learning outcomes, links to the learning outcome. Designing the assessment will also link back to the learning outcome. So the learning outcome is the core there. So if you ask me what is the process, this first step is always the learning outcomes. And so when I come to designing the outcome based assessment, um, the first thing is to look at the learning outcome of the course if I am not designing the course, and then look at the content and activities, look at which activities is tagged to the learning outcome, and see if it's enough, and then make sure that it is all tagged correctly. It can be one activity tagged to one learning outcome, or one activity tagged to all of the learning outcomes. And then the process will continue with looking at the starting designing the assessment report, and it goes to creating the criteria. So criteria is so in our outcome based assessment, it's always learning outcomes, and then when we create the report, we have to create the criteria. So criteria, evaluation criteria, we call it. uh, it's needed to set up a clear standard of achievement for each of the learning outcomes. So it could be a few criteria for one learning outcome. Or another way to see it is when the students have what evaluation criteria is what the students have to do or have to show. Uh, what the students have to do to show that they have achieved the learning outcomes. So that's the second part of designing the assessment, or designing the setting up the assessment report. And then after looking at the criteria, like we have to develop that. So criteria can be like a statement. It can be like a question. In the case of graphic design course, we use questions, right, Atika?
Yes.
Um, because when we use questions, I feel like putting it in a question form will help the assessor to like question themselves. Like these are the things that I have to look in the student submission. And then under this each of these criteria, we have to think about the assessment type. And on Open Learning, we have 4 types, which is bands, categories, numeric, and pass or fail. And so we choose which we have to choose one for each criteria, and then also decide on the weightage for each of the criteria, and then go back and see the weightage for the whole report. We can have one report, we can have one report for the whole course, we can also have like a few reports for the whole course. So that's like the process of it. It's not so hard.
Yeah, it doesn't sound so hard. Okay, so we have a question by Prof. Karim actually. Prof. Karim is joining us today.
Oh,
So,
hi, Prof. Karim.
he's asking, are you using backward design for your assessment planning?
So backward design meaning that start going back to like starting from the back and then getting the learners going back there. Is that what it means?
I think it's basically means that you think of the assessment first and then
Yeah.
match it to the outcome.
Oh.
So, yes.
Oh, I thought it's like learning outcome. So I will not say that. When I'm doing it, I would it would always be learning outcome first. And then when I'm designing the content and activities, I don't have to actually think about the assessment yet, because everything will actually be going back to the learning outcome, and then the assessment can come next, because everything is aligned to the learning outcome, so it will not be a problem when designing the assessment.
Okay,
I
so
hope that answers.
I guess here what you're saying is that your focus is outcome, and then goes to assessment, and then well, yes, and then you go to the assessment, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So yes, Prof. Karim is also saying yes, outcome first, followed by assessment, and followed by learning activities. All right. So I think this is also aligned to the constructive alignment that we usually let people know, right? So all of this like goes together. So I think for me as well, I always look at the outcome, and then I look at the outcome, and then think of an activity, and then from there assessment instead. I just go from like their assessment, outcome, activity, assessment, rather than assessment and then activities.
Yes. Constructive alignment.
Okay. We just used Elena for a bit. Okay.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get Elena's point on this. So let's just wait for Elena a bit.
Yeah, she's back.
So Elena, so sorry that you were disconnected a bit just now. I just wanted to get your insight on this, on how Shaliza has planned her assessment. No.
Everyone. Am I back? My connection is not so good here. Can you guys hear me? Good? Yeah, all right. So coming back to the question, I do agree with Shaliza in the sense that, you actually have to match everything back to the course outcomes and the learning outcomes. But at the same time, I also feel that, all of this actually can be also looked into the content as well, the content of your course, the content of your whatever training that you have. So the content itself, as it also matters when it comes to designing the assessment. So because there are some courses which actually the content is a bit more technical. And then some it's not so technical. It's more like based on reflective, or maybe you can do a little bit more sharing things and that. So that's why I feel that apart from the outcomes, the content of your course matters as well. So yeah, I hope that gives some idea in a sense that how we can actually rethink about designing the assessment itself. Like, I don't think that there is one way of how to actually do it, because all of us, we tend to be very different. Like our learners are different, our course, the discipline itself is different. Like some are more technical in engineering or computer science. Those things are a bit more technical in that sense. And then there are those who are in the social sciences. You're a bit more softcore. There's a lot about theories, and then a lot about thinking, opinion, discussion. So those things actually also matters. Yeah, so that's why I think that to add on to what Shaliza has mentioned earlier, I think the content of your course itself matters as well. So yeah, I hope I answered the question.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the Elena. I just wanted to add a bit on what Prof. Karim has shared about backward design model. So the backward design model is actually you're looking into the outcome first, and then think of the evidence, which is the assessment. How do you plan to do the assessment, and then you think of the activities. So a lot of people, as Elena mentioned, there's no one way to do this. There's a lot of way how you can do this, but talking about thinking just mentioning about the backward design itself is it helps you if you're thinking mainly for assessment. What are you if it's a course that you plan to really have an assessment, that's this backward design process is really good because it helps you in planning your own activities. But as how I do it, because I usually created short courses and courses that I don't that the assessment feature isn't a priority, top priority for me. It goes to learning outcome, activities, and assessment. So that's already two ways of doing creating assessment, right? So, but how Shaliza has mentioned that she has done this for a whole course. So let me show you how the report is looks like. Yes. So the report that Shaliza has built is that a full course completion report. So what she did is that she has tied every activity with the outcome itself. So it's not like task-based report. Instead, what she did is more of like outcome. She ties mainly to the outcome rather than the assessment itself. So this is why what she mentioned is that her main one is looking at the outcome rather than looking at the assessment. So this is why you can see like the criteria that he have is a lot, right? Because this is not just for one task. This is for the whole course. So this is why what Shaliza was mentioning about. Okay. Prof. Karim is just mentioning about hoping to see more examples of specific assessment strategies in the future blog. Maybe showcase some innovative assessment strategies that are cognitively engaging. So, Shaliza and Helena, maybe you want to take that challenge by Prof. Karim?
We will try our best.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, but I think Prof. Karim actually also mentioned like it's a very good point in the sense that I think everyone wants to actually see a concrete example, of how we are actually doing all of this. Yeah, so I think this would actually be something that we would look forward to, in order to come up with that block so that we can actually showcase to more educators and trainers, as to how we can actually make this by using concrete examples. So thank you for that, Prof. Karim.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Karim. I think we have in OpenLearning, in using the platform or the assessment report, there's a lot of ways that many creators have used it or tweak it, which is also can be considered as outcome based, but they use it, meaning that it doesn't have to be as the criteria as how I did it. It doesn't have to be the statement criteria, but their criteria is like a set of criteria that needed to be looked at, or um, like the learners the assessor have to look at all these criteria. Then only they would be able to give assess the learners. So maybe there's a lot of more ways that we can explore after this on how to actually do this.
Yes. Maybe we can also have Prof. Karim join us to do this as well with us, right?
Yes, that would be so good because Prof. Karim has a lot of experience.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So while we're on this, I guess next I wanted to basically talk about the criteria and the rubrics. So well, while you can see here, there's the criteria, a lot of criteria that Shaliza has said. There's also like rubrics inside the criteria. Like what Shaliza has mentioned that she's using the question a question style instead of a description. But I wanted to know, like, is the detailed description in the evaluation criteria necessary? If you already have this, is it necessary to add additional description to the criteria?
It really depends on what you want to assess, like how you're assessing it. For this one, is the distance between the elements used in the design appropriate? I think it's only to look at the distance. Maybe if for example, in a case where you need to have like a specific distance, or like a more detailed instruction on how this distance is actually evaluated, then maybe you can put that in the additional description. There are also assessment reports that I see where they put like a statement for the criteria, and then under the description there are like a more detailed way on how to evaluate this criteria, like this particular criteria. So the description would be like more things, like is the content blah blah blah, or is the language and the tone of this thing appropriate, or something like that. So in that case, it could be like not a lot of criteria, but under that criteria there's more description.
So mainly the additional description is just to help you in know in better assessing the learners, right?
Yeah. There are also people who actually put a guide on if you're using assessment type like numeric, where there's no actually guideline on what what marks to give. So the description can actually help in terms of that, like how many marks you should give, how many marks should the student get if they can get something, like 5 marks for this, 4 marks for this, and then it's easier for the assessor to actually calculate that.
That's interesting. Okay. So because you mentioned like all the description, what about the assessment type itself? So because we have the 4 types: band, categories, numerics, pass, fail. What types do you like? Which one do you prefer and would suggest people to use, and why?
I would suggest to use all, but uh, well, you can experiment with all and see which one you like. But I think I would prefer the bands. I think a lot of people prefer the bands as well because the bands will have like a more structured or detailed way on how you can. It's like a guided way for you to assess learners, and I feel like if I am an assessor and assessing a lot of students, um, as I go through, I might get I don't know, I might get inconsistent in giving them in assessing them. So having the rubric will help me to be more consistent.
Mm, okay. What about you, Elena? I'm not sure if you tried the assessment feature yet,
Mm,
but what would you prefer, or if you have any suggestion to everybody's
mm.
watching?
Yeah. So in that sense, okay, first and foremost, I'm sorry if you guys can hear the background noise. Yeah, so please bear with
It's
me.
fine.
So based on my previous experience, when I was lecturing, I do tend to like to use the likert scale. You know, as to you have. I think it's also pretty similar to the bands, I guess. You know, you have a column where, okay, if let's say this is a very good report, you know, a written assessment. So this is like a 5. So why is it 5? So you have those criteria underneath it. And then if let's say when you mark those reports, and if they fulfill all the criteria, then yes, those actually fall into the category or the scale, you know, of 5. But if let's say, I think it also depends on what you're using it for, what kind of assignments or assessment that you are planning to also let your learners to do. So, yeah, I think I do agree with Shaliza in the sense that if possible, you know, based on my own lecturing experience, I do tend to actually use all of it whenever I can, you know, like maybe not for one single course, but maybe for the other courses that I have. Because as I mentioned earlier, you know, different course or different content will actually require you to use different ways to actually assess it. And I think that's why our report here, the assessment report in the Open Learning platform, it works in that way. So yeah, I think everyone should try out, you know, all of it.
Mm-mm. Yep.
Okay. Uh, well, yes. I think both of you are correct in trying all of it. But this is mainly if you have multiple criteria as well. So if you're just using one, it's best to use like more. This is just from my opinion. It's best to use bands and categories because it's more detailed for you for people to evaluate. Because
Mhm.
numerics, you need to be able to know uh, how to evaluate. Like if it's out of 100, why are you giving this person 70, 80, or 60? You need to know, justify why you're giving them uh, this marks, right? But if it's band or categories, you have much more description and a leeway on how you can choose which is which. Pass and fail is just right or wrong. So I for that one I mean, if it's something that is right or wrong, you can use that. But if it's not, I my suggestion is to not use that. That
But I
is
think
my.
Mm-hmm.
to also add on, you know, I think some educators or trainers, I think mainly in the academic, they prefer to use the one that, you know, with the band. Sorry, the
Mm,
numerical. Yeah, you know, you have the
mm,
very effective, you know, 78 to 100. So, like, for example, those kind of type of assessment would be like if let's say you have a final report, where you want to replace your final examination. So instead of doing the conventional going to the exam hall, and then you sit down and then you answer the questions and things like that. But if let's say, this is a bit more different, now in terms of like COVID and everything, so you have to do it online. So you won't be able to actually let your students to take the final examination. So now you may want to actually also use getting them to write a entire, I don't know, few thousand words of report. So I think that because it serves as the final assessment for the course, then I think by using the band description here, very effective, not so effective, then I think this would actually work, in replacement of our typical final examination. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. All right. Thank you, Elena, for that. But yes, overall, it's still up to you on what you feel suitable for your own assessment, right? Like for this one, because there's like a lot of criteria, there's a different kinds of types that are being used to determine each criteria. So try to figure out what works for you instead. Okay.
Yep.
So any other things that you want to add, Shaliza or Elena, before I ask another question?
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much. I think what we are trying to create here, I guess, is to let everyone know that whatever that the existing scoring rubrics that you all have, it's actually pretty similar. We work based on that as well. So now what we need to think about is how do we convert your existing scoring rubric into this. So it is not so different, but now that it's just that we are doing it online, and then we're linking it to the platform and also to your online course. So perhaps, by creating that understanding that, it is the same as the scoring rubric that you already have existingly. Yeah. So we're just turning it into an online version of it. Yeah. So that would probably help us to, find it easier and more efficient to actually use this.
Okay. So while you're on rubrics, maybe you can elaborate what makes a good rubrics.
I think personally, I think that a rubric should be detailed in the sense that you need to provide what are the things that, if let's say you are not the one who's marking it or assessing it, then I think you need to come from that perspective. Like if another person were to mark this using your rubric, would they be able to understand? So that's why in a way you need to make it detailed enough that it has all the information. If let's say I were to pass this assignment to someone else to mark it. So in that sense, that's why I felt that by using the categories, like for example, you have different elements of marking your report, for example. So when we come to the introduction part of it, when you write a report, right, there's like different parts to your report. So there's the introduction, and then there's the content, and then there's the conclusion part. So for introduction, like, what would we want to see in the introduction? So if let's say the marks that you have allocated for the introduction component is, let's say, over 5. So 5, what would it look like? So in the introduction, it must have like definition, for example, and then it must have citation, and then it must be real life application, for example. So all these things, it would actually lead to someone getting a 5 if I were to see all these criteria, in the introduction segment itself. So, and then it's the same that applies to the content of it. Like, for example, you wanted, because I come from a psychology background. So if let's say, I were to ask a student to use 5 different theories that they have learned so far. So, do I see these 5 theories? And then if these 5 theories, I've seen it, but is the definition accurate, or are they using it correctly? So all these things, I think would help the learners to also know what is expected of them when they produce this report. And at the same time, if let's say I'm not the one who's marking it, because I understand that some of the educators, they do have like a postgraduate helper, that they will come and help to mark the assignments and things like that. So would they be able to also follow the same rubric, so that you are able to standardize across all the learners? So that's why I think in a way rubric is very helpful, and I think it's a must to have. I mean, for me personally, yeah, I do use rubrics a lot previously. So that's why I think that there's no dispute there, like everyone is, you're able to see it and it's transparent in the sense that you know what is expected, it's already standardized. So these are the marks that you are able to see that you will get it if you fulfill all of this. So I think probably that would actually makes I think would make a good scoring rubric. And that's why I feel that I'm sure a lot of academics or trainers, they already do have this scoring rubric, but it's just that probably it's not, in the version of whatever that we're doing right now, link it to the assessment report. But the idea of it is actually very, very similar. So we just need to probably, learn a little bit of how we can tweak it here and there. Yeah. So then I think it will actually result into the same function of a typical scoring rubric. Sorry, a bit long, but I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually true, because there's a lot of course creator actually reuse their rubrics. Educators will
Mhm.
reuse the rubrics and give us the rubric so we can add it into the assessment report.
Yeah. Thank you, Procurement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was just actually thinking about because this is usually you have all this planned out before, like you're thinking about the assessment already, but thinking about this activity from activity strength point of view, while you're building the activity, do you already think about the rubrics, or when you build the assessment report and everything, and then you think about the rubrics? I was just thinking about that.
Good question. Okay, I think for myself, personally, what I do is that I take a look at the content first, because every semester I do have like different subjects to teach. So back then, what I do is that I actually look at the book, the textbook itself. It's a lot of work, but it's a must that you need to do it. And then, from there you try to synthesize it, and then you try to summarize, the points that you want the learners to be taking away from this particular course or class. So then after that, I will sit down and I will try to think about the activities. So the activities, like what Shariza mentioned earlier, it has to be aligned with the course outcome or the learning outcome that you have. So that's a given. So I don't actually want to talk much about that, because all of us know that that is like the foundation of your entire course. So your activity has to be aligned to that, and at the same time, when you think about the activity, does that actually lead to the outcome that you want to have? It's like, okay, yes, you said, okay, for example, your learning outcome probably would be like to understand or to apply this theory in real life. So how would you create an activity that would allow your learners to be able to apply these theories in a real life application kind of setting? Yeah. So for example, what I get my learners to do previously is that try to look for a famous person. It can be anyone, like it can be Mother Teresa or Nelson Mandela. Okay. And then you try to go through their biography. And then from there, you pick up where are the areas that you can actually apply all of this psychological theories that you have learned so far in that famous person through their biography. So from there, I think that actually creates that kind of opportunity for the learners to actually do what they need to do in order to achieve the learning outcome. And then from there, after that, I will come up with the scoring rubric. Like, what do I mean by having a very good introduction component? So what entails into that as considered as a good introduction, and then what is a moderate kind of introduction, and then what is like a introduction that will requires more improvement, for example. Yeah. So I think those are the things that I tend to look at. I hope that answers your question.
So for
Okay.
you, it's the learning outcome, and then the activities, and then the
The
rubric,
content,
the content, and
the
activities.
learning outcome, and then the
Oh,
content, the
content
learning
first.
outcome.
Okay.
Yes, because to me, I come from a multidisciplinary, like not just psychology, like I have like IT and all those other things. So, to me, the content matters, but at the same time, the content also need to match with the learning outcomes that you already have. Because back then when we were lecturing, sometimes you inherit, you got your class or your course, from some other lecturers. You may not be the first one who's actually
Yeah.
teaching this subject. Yeah. So that's why to me, I want to understand what's the content first. And then after that, I will look back into the learning outcome. And then if it sort of aligns, if it doesn't, then I think I will actually try
Tweak
to
it.
make it more, tweak it to more line. And then from there, I will actually change the entire, the learning activity. And then how do we assess whether the assessment is actually providing and enabling the learners to create that kind of outcomes. Yeah. I
Yep.
hope. Mm.
I feel like that happens also when we are designing courses for I don't know, SME or educators, because sometimes
Mhm.
we have the content, we have the learning
Yes.
outcomes, but we're
Yes.
not sure whether these two are like, aligned to each other. So
Mm.
we will
Yeah.
look at the content first,
Yes.
right? We look at the content
Yeah.
and try to
Yeah.
understand it, because we also are not
Mm-hmm.
subject matter experts, and we are not experts on the
Mm-hmm.
subject. So we look at the content, and then we go back
Mm.
to the learning outcomes, go back to content, go back to learning outcome, until we can
Yeah.
get that aligned, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe also improve the learning outcome, suggest for
Yes.
improvement of the learning outcome that we feel is will be more helpful, or will help the,
Mm.
to design the course better.
Yeah.
Yep. So I guess it's quite the same process there.
Yes. And especially if you have a course that is the content changes a lot, like in a very fast-paced industry, like I don't know, like for those who are training in the IT world, computer science or engineering, things like that, especially computer related fields or courses. I think because the nature of that industry itself, it changes so much. That's why I think that we have to make sure that our content is up to date. And by doing that, sometimes you may not have some content inside there, but right now, for example, like mass communication, you have previously, you only had like advertising and promotion and things like that, but now you have social media, like TikTok and Instagram, whatever. So I think in order to be more relevant, to the learners, by updating the content, it would also requires you to relook, like what Shaliza mentioned, to improvise, on your learning outcome to ensure that it fits into the new content as well. So yeah, I think that's why to me, and I think to most of us here, yeah, looking at the content is actually pretty crucial. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a very interesting question by Prof. Karim. Should we have rubrics for ungraded tasks for formative assessment? I think I have think about this from time to time, but I put it away.
Okay. Would Shaliza like to take that first,
Yeah.
or?
Anyway, you guys can go first.
You can take that first.
Uh, okay, for ungraded tasks, I think to me, I would still like to have the rubric because formative assessment it's like an ongoing thing, throughout the entire course. So, for example, your course may be like a 12-week course, you know, um, even though it's ungraded, not graded, ungraded, yeah, tasks. But to me, is that because that will actually provide an opportunity for the course creator or the facilitator or the lecturer or the trainer to actually provide feedback, to your learners. So the learners need to know currently where am I, how's my progress so far. So to me, I feel that in order to be able to give them like a subjective it's not subjective, sorry, an objective answer that, okay, you are doing well. So then how well is well? That term of well is very subjective. And in order to make it more objective, so I feel that by having a rubric, then we will actually be able to tell them, like, to pinpoint exactly where you are doing it okay, and then where would need more improvement. Why do you need more improvement? Because so and so and so, according to your scoring rubric. So I know it's a lot of work, but hey, come on, we are doing education, right, and training. So
Yeah, we want to transfer the knowledge, right?
yes, and we need to
but
ensure that there is opportunity for constant feedback as well. So we don't only want to look at constantly assessing the students, but we also want to look at how we are constantly providing the learners an opportunity to receive feedback as to how they're doing. Sorry, Shalisa, I think I cut you off
No,
there.
that's okay. That's okay. I
Yeah.
think it's I agree with what you said, but I was thinking about what if, I mean, what's the difference between if we're talking about the rubric and having the feedback,
Mhm,
what if the expectation of this task or
mm,
assignment or activities throughout the course is already been given, like
mhm,
brief in the beginning of the course, and then
mm,
throughout the course the learners will also receive feedback based on
mm,
the expectation given. So there's no
mhm,
rubric.
mhm,
So rubric, we can have rubric or we cannot have rubric, but also have that kind of given, but then it has to be really clear for the learners so they
mm,
would know how to achieve these goals.
mm. Okay. I think probably, like, for example, like during a course setting or a class setting, you normally have things like group discussion,
Mm.
where peers are involved in collaborating or maybe to review each other's work. But then this whole process itself, it may not be a graded task. But if, let's say, I am a learner and I'm part of the group, like, let's say the three of us, okay, we are in one group, and then we're supposed to be giving feedback and to review on each other's work. If, let's say, there is no rubric to guide us, then how do I know what I would need to be giving you feedback on? I mean,
Mm.
just being like, trying to come from a different perspective. So I don't know. So that's why, to me personally, if, let's say, if I put myself in the perspective of a learner, um, how would I be able to know, what to,
Mm.
how do I
How do
provide you a
you give?
constructive feedback?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
If, let's say, there is no, okay, it may not be a rubric, okay, it can be just like a standard or a guide, as to these are the things that we need to look for in order for us to complete this discussion, or in order for us to review each other's work. So we are
Mm.
all clear in the sense that it may not be graded, but let's us all do our best, and then we try to be each other's brain that we can pick from, and we learn from each other. So that's why I think that we have so many different perspectives and the way of how we do things and look at things. So I felt that by having the rubric, it would probably be a clearer guide, for me to ask both of you questions. If, let's say, we were in a group setting, where we need to learn from one another, yeah, or maybe we're working on a particular topic together. So what are the things that we need to do? So yeah, I don't, yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mm,
totally agree with you, Alina, with this rubric, but just
mm,
wondering. Before this I was just wondering. So yeah, but we also have like I mean, we are also using rubric for our, when
mm,
we are doing reviewing courses or things like that, we
mm,
also use rubric,
yeah.
and it helps us to be consistent, and
Mm.
throughout everyone will, it's more fair, I feel,
Yes,
also.
and it's more transparent as well. Like,
Mm.
if I say that okay, this area needs to be improved, then it's not because of bias or anything, but it's because, according to this particular guideline or structure or rubric, okay, this is the reason why we say that this is not um, accurate, so we need to improve on this, for example.
Okay.
We have another interesting one from
Yeah.
Prof. Karen over here. Like providing
Yeah.
rubric for ungraded task is like giving feed forward rather than feedback.
Mm.
So it's
Feedforward rather
rather
than
than
feedback.
giving a feedback, it's a feed forward.
Mm.
Just think about this a bit.
Yeah.
Uh,
So it's like providing them with like they would know what what is I mean we would say that, oh, giving the rubric first will let the learners know what is expected of them. But now it's like a feed forward, like
uh,
early
I think,
feedback.
I think how we can look at this is that by having an ungraded task is that we're actually giving them an expectation early on their work or and everything. So instead of by having them doing this on the final activity and then we give them feedback, we give them like a boost a boost on this is what you've done, you're good, and then they can actually utilize this for the future activities that they're going to do. So I guess it's like setting expectation early on, giving them what they needed early on rather than by the end of it.
Mm.
So,
I think giving the rubric first is like if I am a learner and I see the
Mhm.
rubric first, I would know what to do.
Mhm.
Ah, it's as simple as that. Kan?
yeah, yeah.
I actually look at this in a different perspective. In a sense that again coming back to the nature of the course, there are some courses where you have to come up with like a major final activity, like a final assessment, like you have to come up with a prototype, of a um, like a prototype of a particular, I don't know, like artificial intelligence prototype, like okay, it's something that it's quite a huge task, and that is actually your final product of the entire course, for example. So I think that to me, I like the concept of feed forward instead of feedback, because feed forward means that you are providing the learners with the opportunity to actually learn and to improve so that they can come up with better. Because to me, okay, if let's say that is my course that I have to come up with a artificial intelligence prototype, for example,
Mhm.
your activities would definitely be like a small parts of it that would then lead up to you being able to do that prototype at the end of the course. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I look at it. If let's say I were the person who's creating this course, then I think that would be the approach that I'm going to use. And by doing the feed forward, that means you are giving them opportunity that okay, now I tell you this is what you need to be doing, and then later when you come to the final product, you already know what is to be expected. And in that sense, like yeah, you give them more opportunity to improve on. And I think like I will be very excited, to look at the final product because you have so many opportunities to actually you already know what to be expected, and then you can up your game. Yeah, I hope that's the right term to use it in that sense. But I think that it helps,
Yeah.
in different
I feel like
ways. Yeah.
it's more motivating and it makes it feel safer if I'm a student,
Mm.
because I know that it's all clear and transparent here for me, and
Mhm.
I know what is expected of me. I know what to do. Like, rather than having like being given a task and you don't know what to do, you don't know
Mm.
what is expected of you. It's a bit
Mhm.
scary.
Mm.
Yeah, yes. So
It's more
in
like looking into the, like what Prof. Karen is mentioning here. It's more like looking into the future of things. The possibility, of you coming up with a better artificial intelligence prototype. I think that is a very uh, encouraging and motivating, like what Shalisa has mentioned. Like it's kind of like pump me up if I'm a learner or if I'm a student. I think I would be so excited that I want to, work on this even more, and I want to really up my game. Yeah, so I think, oh yeah, someone mentioned Feedforward might encourage students discussion on their work as well. Yeah, true.
I guess one is, okay, I'm just thinking out loud, that is like having a detailed instruction, a way, like detailed instruction, putting our expectation early on is a way of feed forward. Like if you have an activity, this is an ungraded activity, but you put in an instruction, uh, which you put in all the expectations, like you need to have like this description, like and then all with like several steps of this or this. Is that like a feed forward, a version of feed forward as well?
I think that would only set the expectation in terms of what they can do and produce. Okay, I think in a way, like, okay, when you have a rubric for a graded assignment, so that rubric will give them the marks, right? So that will actually help you to assess it and to mark it. And then after that, the students will get the feedback because it's already like, I've already done it, and now I can tell you how is it like. But with the concept of Feedforward, I believe that it's more of like looking into the future, like as in what is to be expected. Like, what do you think this particular assignment? Okay, let's say these are the how should I put it? These are some of the things that we are looking at. Can you think of more? And then if there is more, then what would this be, and why would this kind of criteria, be like important to have? So in a way, I think it sort of like sparks that kind of thinking among the students or the learners as well. Like, they need to think beyond what is available right now. Yeah. So
Help people learn to be
it's
right.
so like how can they improve, or how they can achieve, to or strive. I don't know. I think that's the better word. Yeah, to strive to have a better version of that. I hope that makes sense.
Prof.
Yeah, Prof.
Karim
Karim
is
is saying,
giving a cooking.
what
Hey,
can
I
we
wonder.
expect? I think
That makes
cooking
me
is always
wonder.
like a good example.
Yes, always, because it relates to everyone, like you said the other day, Alina.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, right? If
Yeah.
so, now that Prof. Karim gave the cooking dish example, I wonder if a learner is given what is expected of them, right? Like, for example, let's take the cooking. So like you tell your daughter that you're supposed to cook something, and then this daughter will come out exactly of what is expected of you. Would that like sort of would, I mean, just me wondering, would it be constraining? Would it somehow or some way constrain them from creating more, or how do we act, if it is, how do we make sure that it's not constraining? Like, if you understand what I'm trying to, maybe
Yeah.
we can ask
But
Prof.
my
Karim.
question would be, how sure are you, even though with the same instruction, the outcome would be the same as how you would usually cook it?
Yes, exactly.
Thank
I
you.
was thinking the
Thanks.
same thing. Like you give
It's like
them
for
the
example,
expectation.
it's like for example, you buy a Maggie pack, and then at the back of the Maggie instant noodle, there will be description, right? Like or instruction to tell you, okay, you have to boil the hot water, and then you put this for 8 minutes. Okay, 8 minutes maybe too much. Okay, but yeah, you know what I mean. The instruction of it, right? But somehow there will be some people who manage to burn the entire Maggie pot, or there will be
But that
someone who I think to me, I look at it from that perspective, I guess. Like, you gave them the instruction, but the outcome of it, it's like it will surprise you in many ways. Like I don't think by giving the instruction will actually lead to the same outcome for each and every learner. Yeah, I hope I'm making sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
to me, I
I
don't
feel
look at
like
it as constraining.
I feel like it could also mean that when we are designing the rubric, we have to also make sure that it's an it allows them um to go outside and to be more diverse and to create all these different things, to come up with all these unique different things from produce products or submission. So I guess it also depends on how we are creating the rubric. If
Mm.
mm.
Yeah, I think coming to Prof. Karim's,
What's the
I think,
difference with rubric? Oh, wait, sorry.
Go
oh,
on,
no worries.
Ellen.
Oh no, I just wanted to say, like in a perfect world, I think all of us would want to have the opportunity to give each and every learners a personalized feedback, in a perfect world. But unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world, and right now with the pandemic, it makes it even more challenging, to provide learners with personalized feedback. Yeah, so I do agree, with Prof. Karim in that sense. That's why I think yeah, Feedforward maybe a good way to go. Sorry, Shadiza. I think Prof. Karim is asking you a question.
Yeah, my God. uh, what's the difference with rubric for graded tasks? Constraining
Mm,
creativity as well.
I
I'm
don't
not
think
so
like
sure.
rubrics is constraining you
mm,
to creativity, right? As much as the analogy was like expectation, the analogy of cooking, like mom's expectation is like this. We
mm.
They're still, because your own creativity, your own personalized self, you just give them the base, and then they
We
they make
see
it
what they come up
their
with.
own. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. I think it will not constrain creativity if the rubric is designed in a way that it will not give too much I guess I
Constraints.
yeah, constraint. So then it will allow learners to actually create more, or go outside of the box and things like that. Mm.
I think the idea is that to provide like some sort of like I won't say direction, but we are just trying to mold them or gently nudge them. Hey, you may want to take this road less taken. Why? Okay, because here are some of the reasons. In that sense, we are not really like putting a chain, on their neck and then drag them like, hey, come to this side. So I don't think we are actually that's the whole idea of it. I don't think that's the way. But what we are trying to do is that we are trying to create the opportunity, like what I think Prof. Karim mentioned earlier, for them to, how can we do this right? Instead of telling them, oh, this is wrong, and then this is where you need to improve, why, but we are
Mm,
like just gently nudging them,
yeah.
like, hey, like we're molding their thinking in a way. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think probably
Actually,
that's the. Mm, go
Marshita
ahead.
actually uh, have a message like rubrics is maybe a guidance and not
Mm.
providing an answer. So you can't like it's just with a pinch of salt, sugar, just don't like it's not like a set rule that okay, this is your answer. You need to be there. It's a guidance for you. Rubrics is just a guidance for you in order for you to
I
help
think
the
it's not
students. Yeah. Yeah.
it's not like giving answers like, okay, this is the answer that you need to have. No, I
Yes.
think we are like playing with that structure, like, okay, as long as you have this and this and this, then we can consider this to be accurate answer, or we can consider
Mm-hmm.
this to be an appropriate answer. Yeah, because I think like especially in the social science, I guess. Like, yes, we do have a lot of theories, and the way how you apply these theories is actually really up to your creativity, in that sense. Like, where can you see that this comes in, and then where does it fit in that sense? So if
Mm.
we were to do a rubric that is so rigid, that there's no room, for all this to come in, then I think, that would probably lead to, the constraining of the creativity component of it. But if let's say, the rubric is clear, but at the same time, you don't make those criteria to be like a set in stone, like as though you have no room to to change it, in that sense. It's not so rigid. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So
Feedforward. Yes, we agree with you, Prof. Karim.
yes.
I think we
Yes.
need to explore this idea on Feedforward as well. More blog post idea.
Mhm. Maybe
Or
it
maybe we
is,
can
it is an
invite Prof.
interesting
Karim.
one.
Or maybe we can invite Prof. Karim to talk more about this. Feedforward.
Yes.
Yeah, why not?
All right. I
Okay.
guess I think we actually have exceeded 1 hour. But this was a good discussion on assessment. So while this is just a little bit part of assessment, we actually have more plans coming up. So I just wanted to share that for those, yes, for those who might not know, we are having a symposium next week. So we have a micro credential symposium from 18 to 25 November. So if you're interested to know what plans, what sessions there are in, you can just head on to the link in there. I think we'll also be putting the link in the chat box as well. But part of the session is also we're actually talking about this again. Well, not this per se. It's more assessment. We have a session with Dr. Aisha, who actually joined us for this morning for our basics workshop. She will be having her again to talk about assessment for the next Daniel L, which is also part of the micro credential symposium. So for the next one, it won't be on the same day, which is today, Wednesday. It will be on on Monday. Sorry, on Monday. It will be on Monday on at 2 p.m. If you're interested to know all of the other sessions, workshops that are happening on in the micro credential symposium, you can head on to the link. Which one another part of the workshop is talking about activities where Shaliza and Elena will be handling it. Maybe you guys wanna explain a bit about what that session is.
So it's going to be how to design learning activities that will help your learners to produce or to come up with unique learning artifacts. So in the workshop, we'll be sharing with you some example or samples of learners unique artifacts, learners learning artifacts that is already alive. And then we will be guiding you on how to create learning activities using our template, and also showing you or demo the portfolio of how these learning evidence or learning artifacts are collected in our portfolio. What else, Alina?
I think the idea is to provide a clearer understanding, perhaps, as to what do we mean, by unique learning artifact, because
Yep.
I think there's like so many different ways that we can interpret this and to understand this. So perhaps we can shed some light in terms of that, like what is our take, on what is unique learning artifacts. So do come and join us, and then perhaps we can have more discussion with all of you.
Yes. So as shown on the screen, we have like a whole bunch of this workshop discussion, the Daniel L session, all about all in the symposiums during the symposium. So feel free to take a look at some interesting sessions that you might be interested in. If all of this are relating to micro credentials, but even if it relates to micro credentials, it also relates to a whole online learning experience itself. So, but I guess I just wanted to share with everyone about the symposium that's happening. Okay. So
I think all in all,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that, all in all, I think this micro credential symposium, the information or the discussion that we'll be having and sharing, I think it can be applied throughout the entire online education ecosystem. Yeah, not just, for those who want to create a micro credential. Like for example, the unique learning artifact, we will be talking about, learning activities, how the engaging learning activities and stuff. So these are also information which you can use if, let's say, you're like keen to design or create your own course learning activity. Yeah, but we are sort of like targeting a little bit more, to those who want to do micro credential. But having that said, the information can be used throughout or across the entire online education ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for concluding that, Elena. So, I guess this session, this was a great session, especially with having Prof. Karim asking us all these questions.
Yes.
Thank you, Prof. Karim, for making us have this more lively discussion.
Yes. Appreciate it.
So,
Thank you, Prof. Karim.
So for today, for dinner, should we all go and cook some omelette and see what happens? Like,
yeah, and see if our feed forward helps.
yeah, Feedforward. Prof. Karim can join us too.
I think when we talk about assessment, I think all of us should probably imagine it, in terms of an iceberg. I think in the current nature, of how our education system is, I think we are just at the tip, of the iceberg, and there's more room for us to really dive deep and then, to understand more. And like, like what Prof. Karim has demonstrated, there's so many different theories, and a perspective and thinking, and approaches to designing assessment. So yeah, there's still more room for us to, research and to dive deep and to explore more. Yeah. So hope that you guys will take the opportunity to go and find out more about assessment.
Yeah. Any last words, Shaliza?
No, we will go and find out more about the Feedforward, and I think thank you very much to Prof. Karim for all the for participating and all the questions and being very active. Yep.
And
Do you
thank
join
you
us?
all for joining us.
Yes, thank you everyone, not just Prof. Karim for joining us today.
Yeah.
We hope to see you guys again for the next session, which is hopefully during the Macro Credential Symposium. So feel free to join us for the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, thank you for everyone. Thank you, Shaliza and Elena, and also Nikki, who's been clicking all of the the buttons backstage. We hope to see everybody again for the next session. All right.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
See you. Bye. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.